Hey there. I hope I'm coming in live. I'm checking to see if I can see. Give it just a moment. Very good. I'll give everyone a moment to find us. Sorry, we had tech issues. It's Tech Friday. So say hello so I see your comments and see that you're here, you're finding us. Very good. Hey, everyone. I'll give everyone a chance to find us since we're running late. I'm trying to find on my little monitor here to make sure we are live and we're there. All right, I would love for you just to say hello and say where you're from. All right. Now, if you're new to this, I've joked about it's like romper room that I'm looking at you and saying hello. Pat says hello. Hey, Pat, where are you at? Casey says, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you to Liz. Naomi says, hi from the Bay Area. Beth from Southampton. Claire from Connecticut. I love you guys on the East Coast are up late. I so appreciate that. I know where people are going to have trouble refreshing to find us just since we're late. So I'm going to give people a moment to get on. I also want to make sure anyone that wants in can get in. Okay, I'm going to start in just a moment, but I want to make sure everyone has a chance to find their way in. We are trying new things every day, as you can see. We're trying to do it where we have two people tonight. We're just trying something new every day and every evening to see how this goes and finding new ways to connect with you. All right, Janet is in Albany, New York. Kim says, phew, finally found us. Great. Katrina in Vermont. Hey, Gail in Georgia. It's Cheryl in Minnesota. Stephanie in Texas. Sherry, Pennsylvania. Laura, Manhattan Beach. Hey, Robin. You don't have to say hello, but you can say hello. All right. Well, I'm so glad that all of you are here and that you're joining us this evening, and I'm sure more people will be coming on. Sabine is from Houston. Lovely. See, I wanted to rub my nose with my hand. It is so crazy. I am afraid to touch my face in the shower these days. It's just so crazy. And I'm like, I think I can touch my face in the shower. Hey, Michelle, I'm glad you finally found us too. Hi, Sue. Sue is coming from Laurel Canyon Boulevard. I think that's so funny, Sue. Literally, we're all off Laurel Canyon Boulevard, so it's great. All right, everyone. Well, I'm so excited that you're all here. We have a really special guest tonight that I'm going to bring on in a moment. So I'm really honored that she's joining us. And let me just let a few more people in real quick. If I look down, I'm letting more people in. So I'm going to bring in a really good friend of mine, Liz Hernandez, and we're going to be talking about a challenging subject that unfortunately Liz knows firsthand. I know so many of you who are watching know this firsthand. So let's hope my technology works for me to bring in Liz. Hey, Liz, are you there? Hang on. Are you there? Wait, I don't have your sound. Give me one moment. There, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yay, yay, great. Liz, I feel such a sense of accomplishment that we just did this.
Overnight, we're expected to be technological gurus, you know?
And it is definitely a challenge, but we're showing up and doing it. And I think that's what we're all learning to do in this, is just how to show up and do this.
Right.
So let me just tell you a little bit about how I got to know Liz, and Liz, you can jump in here in a moment. Um, Maria Shriver is I think I've lost Liz, but hopefully she'll pop back on. I'll just continue. Liz, Maria Shriver is a friend, and Maria Shriver has done so much work with Alzheimer's. And as she's done so much work, she was so kind to write the foreword for one of my books. So I guess this notice that Maria Shriver is going to be speaking at something called Wordiful for Liz Hernandez. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't know what Wordiful is. I don't know who Liz is, but I want to go see Maria. So we get there early in the front row, and Liz comes out. Liz, I'll let you take it from there.
Well, just a few months prior, I was in the middle of the storm of dealing with my mom going through Alzheimer's. And I was handed a book called Life Lessons by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler. And I read this book, and I don't know what chapter I was in, but it hit me. There was so much child's guilt that I was holding on to with this disease, because as a child, you want to be able to do anything and everything you can for a parent because they took care of you. And something just clicked. Something David said in this book just allowed me to go and do the ugly cry. And I sat in my bathroom and was literally sitting on the toilet, like pulling the toilet paper because I couldn't catch up to all the tears that were just streaming out of my eyes. And it was just this amazing emotional breakthrough. So a few months later, I'm having this event with Maria Shriver, and I see on the guest list, David Kessler. And I'm thinking, this cannot be the same David Kessler that just allowed me to have this amazing emotional breakthrough. And so I just kind of held on to it because I said, well, it is Maria Shriver. And if anyone's going to know David Kessler, it's probably Maria Shriver. So as the event's getting started, I get on the mic and I say, is there a David Kessler here? And David, sitting in the front row, raises his hand very shyly. And
I'm like, am I in trouble? Like, am I in trouble? Did I do something wrong?
And I come from a background where I've worked in entertainment television for a very long time. And I told David, celebrities, that's not my thing, even though this is what I do for a living. Book authors are the people who truly move me. And I told him, I said, you are my Beyonce.
I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm in trouble here.
It was really sweet because after we were able to connect and get to know each other and say hello, and David was nice enough to reach out to me a few months later.
And it's interesting, and then I want you to tell them about Wordiful, but it's interesting, we've had this discussion about, in life, you don't know what things are for. I was very clear, my purpose in being there was to say hello and see and support my friend Maria Shriver. Looking back now, it was about meeting Liz Hernandez.
Mm.
And so she's been a real blessing in my life in a lot of ways, and really honored. So tell us about Wordiful. Wordiful was the sponsor of this event. So I'd love people to know you're wearing the t-shirt there, and to know what Wordiful is and how that came about in relation to your mother.
So Wordiful stands for words are powerful. It's kind of like mushing all three words together. And it started simultaneously when my mother was diagnosed with, at first, dementia, and then it moved into Alzheimer's. And she began to lose her speech. And you start to realize what a gift it is to be able to communicate, what a gift it is to tell someone that you love them, what a gift to share memories, just to hear your mother say say my name became such a luxury that I just wanted so badly to hold on to it. And it just really made me come to understand how powerful our words are. And I already had kind of an understanding because my mother was very loving with the way she spoke to me and was very encouraging. And I also came from a radio background, and storytelling, I say, is our superpower. because that's how we build connection. That's how we show, where we're from, what we're about, what we believe in, how we feel about things. And so it was kind of like this, all these different elements came together simultaneously. And it made me realize that as much as I was proud to be moving up in my career, what I really cared about was having a message that had meaning. I wanted to say something powerful into the world. And so Wordiful was created, and it was a way to pay respect to my mother, who was at the same time losing her speech, and a way to communicate to help others understand that there's so much power in what we say, and it carries energy, and we speak things into fruition. And it is literally, especially right now during this pandemic, our thoughts are so powerful. That's what's creating our experience, is our self-talk.
And you and I have joked about our self-talk. I mean, we've got to a point where we laugh at it, but one of the worst nightmares that people are discovering is to be in a house all the time alone with just their mind.
Yeah.
Right? Like, talk about like having trouble with distractions. So Liz, we have a tradition here that I'd like to just do, since now everyone's finding our way. I'm a big believer, when our loved ones die, we don't stop loving them, and they don't stop loving us.
Right.
So I like to just take a moment of silence to send love to those who have died, who live in our hearts. Okay, so if everyone would join me in this moment. Thank you for that, everyone. So, Liz, there's a couple of topics that I feel you would be very helpful in sharing part of your experience. There's the journey of a loved one with Alzheimer's. There is the loss of a mother. And the death of a mother. And I think also there's a lot of people who are watching tonight who have also been caretaker for someone with a chronic illness.
Yeah.
So which of those three might be the one you want to sort of share about first?
We can go in order. It started with, of course, the shock of the diagnosis, because you never think that, at least I never thought that Alzheimer's was something that would happen to our family. My mother was a young 64 years old when she was diagnosed. So it just felt, you're very much in denial. And so then you have to go into immediate action. And for me, that meant by any means necessary. It was this automatic fight or flight response where I was going to do whatever I needed to do to make sure my mother was comfortable. So it's not like you say one day, I'm going to be a caregiver. You just start caring for your parent. And again, by any means necessary, if that meant I had to get in the shower with her and we showered together, if that meant cutting her food and making sure, she didn't hurt herself, if that meant, having to explain to her several times about what's going on and where we were and sometimes who I was, but it's so crazy, David, because looking back on all of those things, those are now some of my most cherished memories. Yeah. It's like, I don't, it's kind of this beautiful survival instinct we get to just care for the person we love. I wasn't thinking like, yeah, of course there's the scary part of, you're in the territory of, I don't know what's happening. But I realized it's that whole knowledge is power. The more I learned about the disease and what was going to happen and the progression of it, it helped calm me down so that I could, one, show up as a better caregiver for my mother and not be so, frightened. And then I had to learn how to separate the two, how to show up as just her daughter and be her daughter some days, and then other days show up fully as a caregiver. Which was difficult. I really salute every caregiver out there in the world, because just like a mother's role, they say a mother's job is the toughest job in the world. Now I get it because I've been a caregiver.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the thing that stands out with me, our mind so thinks about what we've lost, and that's normal. I remember someone sharing with me that their loved one could only eat bland food. I think they had a different illness that they could only eat bland food. So she says, we were up one night having cereal together, and I felt so bad she couldn't eat anything besides cereal.
Mm.
And later, after her loved one died, she said, that's a magical moment that we got to share cereal, and I didn't appreciate what that moment was.
Oh, I can completely relate. I remember just my, with Alzheimer's comes, my mother didn't understand the importance of having to shower. She just didn't get it. And so we kind of had to make it a you and me thing. And so, she would fight me to the the end to get her in, but I would say, okay, Mom, we're going to do this together. And I made it fun. And now, David, looking back on that, it's like what I wouldn't give to stand in the shower with my mom,
Right.
Yeah.
And that idea of dealing with a chronic illness, I think whether it's Alzheimer's or other illnesses, people talk about the 36-hour day.
Yeah.
That even when you're on a break, every phone call, everything, just all the caregiving you do.
Right. It's because you're understanding that their comprehension of reality is that they don't understand. They don't understand why something might hurt them. They don't understand why they can't just walk down the street by themselves, or, there's just, it's not like when you're teaching a child how a child learns from their mistakes. It's actually, you're progressing backwards, where the thing that you just told them not to touch 2 minutes ago, they've completely forgotten that you've just told them that.
Right.
Yeah. But, like I said, there's such a beautiful gift that we're given when we're able to show up for somebody that we love. And so I have no regrets in any of it, the highs and the lows. And then what was the other categories you asked me about, David?
So we talked about chronic, and I just want to ask you this one last thing.
Sure.
About the chronic part. How did you take care of yourself in all that? Being that caregiver, how did you take care of yourself? And I'm sure, like everyone, there were moments you were better at it and moments you weren't so good at it.
Right. Well, let me tell you, it made me realize that you can't control everything, because that's what fear does to us. It makes us want to control the situation because we feel like we don't have control. And so I had to rely heavily on a support system. I'm so grateful that I had friends and family who were willing to show up for me in a really, in a really beautiful way. Like, I would have a girlfriend say, hey, I'm going to go spend an hour with your mom and take her frozen yogurt. Can you just, go take care of what you need to take care of? Or even when I needed to take a break for a week and I went on vacation, and it made me so anxious. But knowing that I had a support system there that was sending me photos, sending me updates, letting me know everything that was going on, it allowed me to rest and recover and come back and be even more grateful to show up as a caregiver for my mother. Because, again, the guilt can overwhelm you if you allow it. And you just have to realize that you can't do it all by yourself. It's very difficult to care for an adult with Alzheimer's. It really does take a village. And so I think if I could lend any advice, it is to really start calling on your resources, and that be friends, that be extended friends, your family, and building out a schedule. And it's okay to say you're tired. It's okay to say you don't have the answers. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the people who showed up to help me navigate through that. Yeah.
In my life, I have had a number of people that have had long-term illnesses. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was one. And when someone's sick for so long, you think, at least for me, early on, when they're struggling and have a tough time, you go, oh my goodness, this might be it. And then they have so many valleys in their illness that you realize, oh, this is it. No, this could be it. This could be the moment we go downhill. And then death comes. And even though you knew it was going to come, it was so hard to believe. Like,
Yeah.
my gosh, she actually died.
Yeah.
Did you experience that with your mom?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, it's such a different feeling from knowing your parent is sick to that final moment where they're not here. And it's almost like the day one where you get punched in the gut again. And, you know, because when you first get the diagnosis, it feels like a death sentence. And then when it comes down to that final day, you're in so much disbelief. You're just like, well, I just thought, I don't know, maybe we would have had another year, or maybe we would have had another day or another month, or I don't think death is ever something that's normal, that we just think, oh, you know,
oh, they died, got it.
They died, and
Yeah.
and it was expected, and that's that. Yeah.
No, I did a talk the other day on sudden death, and I talk about how people are confused that sudden death happens in an expected illness.
Right.
That even though you know someone's going to die from this, you weren't expecting it that day, that moment, that way.
Right.
It still takes us by surprise.
Absolutely. And especially when it's a parent, you know, you never stop being the child. And so you feel like you're always going to need your parent. But, you know, one of the things I actually learned from your book, David, thank you, Grief and Grieving, you know, outside of the initial day that my mother actually passed away, you know, the day my mom passed, it shocked me to hear myself, when I heard myself cry, it was shocking, because it's like this out of body experience where you can hear how much pain is in your cry. But then after that day, I actually called David and I said, I feel at peace. And maybe that was the peace I felt because, you know, my mother had fought the long fight. And David said, well, just enjoy it.
Yeah, just enjoy it, because like the grief's coming back. Enjoy those moments of peace.
But what I learned through David's book is it's called anticipatory grief, where the whole time for those 6-7 years that my mom was ill, you know, there were times where I'd be driving home sobbing my heart out. And it was such like pain that bends you over. And what's that?
You're good.
Oh, and it was just such hard pain that I realized it's kind of like this hot air balloon. You're slowly letting it out because you realize your parent is dying. And so you kind of think that the day they die, you're just going to have that TKO, which you do feel that first day, but you think it's going to come day after day after day after day. And I kept questioning, like, why am I not more sad or in more pain like I was the first day? And it's like, oh, once I read David's book, I was like, oh, that's because I've been crying my eyes out for 6 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we take some questions?
Absolutely.
We have lots of comments and a few questions people wrote.
Okay.
Mary says, I'm at a point when I can completely lose it if I let my guard down. My husband has Alzheimer's. Our son is back at home due to COVID-19, and I'm still working. I have no outlet. I'm a medical social worker, so I have to deal with tough cases and have this knowledge, but it doesn't make it easy. I feel alone. It is a lonely road, isn't it, Liz?
It definitely is. You feel like you're the only one going through it at the time. And there's no one there to explain to you why certain things are happening. You know, I remember going into my mom's closet one day and finding probably 200 spoons just hidden. And I just thought, who can I have this conversation with? Who's going to understand my parent hoarding spoons in the closet? And it just felt like a lonely conversation you can't have with anyone else because you're trying to protect her dignity And at the same time, you're trying to make sense of it as a child. But what I realized is that I had to make my mother feel as normal as possible, because she wasn't the disease. She was still her in her eyes. And I needed her to see that reflected in my eyes.
And that's such an important point that I really want people to hear. Our loved ones are not their disease. 100%. It's not who they are. It's not their identity.
No.
And Mary, I also want to say you're a medical social worker. You know, for me, my roles, my professional roles, don't help me a bit personally. So, you know, you might have people who will go, well, Mary, you're a medical social worker. You've dealt with this. You haven't dealt with it as your husband's Alzheimer's. You've had patients. They're different than your husband. All right. Sherry says, hello, Liz. I lost my mom to cancer about a year ago this April, and I lost my dad to dementia 9 years ago. I don't know which is worse, the disease or watching your dad dwindle away to half the man he was. It's such a cruel disease, and the worst was Dad knew something was happening to him. I remember early on in the disease process, he asked me if I was going away. We cried together, and I asked him to pray to the Lord about it. I miss him and Mom every day, but I am relieved both have no pain and suffering anymore. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Very sweet, Sherry.
Very sweet. And I'm sorry for your losses. Yeah.
Renee says, I lost my mom 3 months ago to Alzheimer's. It's been a struggle. She was my sidekick. I miss her dearly, and I'm so thankful for all the memories. It is, you know, that struggle. One of the things I always teach people is sometimes people will tell me after a long chronic illness that they feel relief and they feel guilty. And I try to remind them, you feel relief because your loved one is not suffering.
Right.
Not because you're glad they died.
No.
Because people go, I feel guilty. Like, I kind of was glad that death came. And I said, because death was the only way the pain would end, that the struggle would end. And there's a part of you that wanted your loved one's struggle to end.
Right. And for me, my experience was, I was so glad my mom was finally free. You know, it's like, I can't imagine, you know, her last few years was mostly sitting in a recliner. And to know that it was going to birth a new relationship between her and I. Like, now we would be able to communicate on such a bigger level. And we have, and it's been beautiful.
As I always say, you know, we know how to love them physically when they're present.
Right.
We have to learn how to love them in their absence.
Absolutely.
When they're physically absent.
Yeah.
I love, like, Julia Roberts has a quote that she said, I actually have a better relationship with my father in death than in life. That sometimes there's a healing that happens in our relationships with our parent. The last part I want you to address, the third piece, was just the death of a parent. You know, they're such our anchors in life.
You know, that was probably the thing that I struggled with the most towards the end, was this huge sense of what I thought was abandonment. I felt like I was being abandoned. It's like, who am I going to be in the world without my mother's love? Or, you know, it's like you feel like your root is missing. And, or am I going to be the same person if this person isn't here to, think about it. Like, the person who loves you the most in the entire world is gone. And what I've taken from that is all that love that she would give to me is now mine to share. And that, to me, is what's really beautiful. You know, it's like what you say, David, it's the meaning we make of it. It's whatever meaning that brings us peace. And yeah, you know, I'm sitting here boo-hooing because it's not It's not.
Liz, I'm going to channel Louise Hay. You are not boo-hooing. You are like, those tears are tears of love.
Yes. It's a testament to how much I love my mom.
Physically see the love that you have for your mom.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind you, you're in a grief group. There's literally 4,000 people in this group where someone has died. So no one's going to go, can you believe she's boo-hooing? Everyone here is crying. But notice how we judge even our own tears.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how we judge ourselves?
I think it's what happens, David, too, is it catches me off guard, because it's not like when my friends come over or I see someone that I just start talking about my mom. I rarely actually talk about it. I journal to my mom, but I don't talk to other people really outside of yourself about how it makes me feel or what I went through. So when I do have an opportunity to talk about it, which is why it's so healing, it brings up so much emotion. And it's really, like you say, it's a testament to just how loved I was and how much I love her. Absolutely.
And that doesn't end.
No, it does not.
Death doesn't have the power to end a relationship. It doesn't have the power to end our love.
Yeah.
I always say, don't give death any more power than it already has.
Yeah. No, it's just, I think it's the beginning of something else. And that's kind of the great mystery of life. Yeah.
Let me just read some of these comments. It's hard to imagine the rest of my life without my dad here. Absolutely. Absolutely. Someone says, thank you for sharing. So true. My mom was my best friend. Liz, tears are sweet and comforting. What a special mom you must have had. That gets me.
Yeah.
We're just going to cry, everyone.
Well, let me just say, when David said he came to the Maria Shriver event not knowing that he really came there to meet me, which just sounds so crazy because I just love David beyond and never knew that we would become such good friends. At my mother's funeral, to be able to look over and see David standing there, I can't tell you, David, I don't even know if I've explained this to you about what that meant to me and what that felt like for me. I felt safe. And it was like seeing, it was you and our good friend, Andrea Kagan, and it felt like seeing two pillars of strength. And I knew I was going to be okay. I really feel that that was my mother's doing, that she sent you into my life because that's how much she loved me. That's a testament to how much my mother loved me. She was like, I am literally going to put the world's greatest grief expert next to you to make sure you're okay.
One of the things that breaks my heart now, and it's really part of the reason I wanted to make sure I did this grief group, that it's for so many people who were left without a physical group to go to. And so many people are now going to be and are in this moment newly bereaved.
Right.
At your mother's funeral, there were so many moving things, but one of the most moving things was you had music every time your mother's body was moved. When it was brought in, music. When it was brought out of the chapel, music. When it was taken from the hearse. And it was such a beautiful ritual. And it breaks my heart so much that so many people are ill now and dying and won't be able to have a funeral for their loved ones.
I think
that's just one of the heartbreaks of this pandemic, that those rituals are so important and grief groups are so important. And grief is so isolating, and yet you're not going to have people around you. So that's why this is just so important to me.
Absolutely. And I think what you're doing is so special, David, because yes, I can't imagine not having the opportunity to honor my mom the way we honored her, and how special that felt in closing the chapter of her life. And the only thing I can recommend. I'm not a David Kessler, but I would definitely say
You're an amazing Liz Hernandez.
one piece of advice that was given to me when this all happened, when I lost my mom, I just lost my mom in November, is our good friend Andrea Kagan told me, start a journal, start writing everything from the day she passed to every moment after. And that has become my saving grace, because now I write it as a love letter to my mother and I express everything that I want to say. So if you've lost someone recently and you can't honor them the way you want to honor them, I highly recommend to start writing in a journal and writing to them, and maybe talk about what you wanted to do or how you want to celebrate them. And you can still do that ritual in your home. My mom's birthday is actually on Monday, and I'm going to do an honorary celebration here in my home for her.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
You know, that mom thing. I'm just going to add two things to the mom thing.
Please.
My mom died over 45 years ago. Someone talked about being a medical social worker. I remember it was probably the 35th anniversary of my mom's death. And I was saying, and I was literally in a hospice where I was working in a hospital. And I said, it's the 35th anniversary of my mom's death. I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend about that. And someone said, 35 years and you still remember? And I'm like, oh, your parents are still alive. And she's like, yeah. Why do you ask that? And I go, because no one who's ever lost a parent would say that. You know, our parents are unforgettable. Everyone's unforgettable, but especially our parents. And the last thing that I want to just mention about that really shocked me. One day at the hospital, this is like 10 years ago now, I'm working at the hospital. My boss calls me in. She says to me, you know, she says the person's name. She says, he's going to be fired today. In fact, he's being fired in the next room right now. And she said, I know you're friends with him. He might need some support today. I go and see him after he gets the news. I said, what are you going to do now? He says, I guess I'm going home. He packs up his office. I say, you know, I'll go with you if you want. And he goes, sure. He calls his wife on the way home. He gets home. He picks up the phone. And we're both in our late 40s, 50s at that point. Picks up the phone and calls his mother. And it dawned on me, if I ever got fired, I don't have a mother to call. Like even at 50, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have a mother to call. It didn't dawn on me that like what a huge archetype that is.
Huge.
So many moments we just miss our parents.
100%. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, one of the things that's been a great lesson to me. Years ago, people would argue or tell me or complain to me how they're arguing with their parents, or they hate a parent, or they wish their parent was out of their life. And at first I would say things like, are you crazy? You don't know what a gift they are, etc. Then after a lot of years, you know what finally dawned on me? Oh, they've got a different parent than mine. Like I would give anything to have an argument with my mother right now. I mean, but I wouldn't have an argument.
Right.
But they have a different parent. They have a different relationship. There's no way I can judge them, you know?
Yeah. No, it's true what you say. I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but when I was going through the thick of heartache and a breakup, I wanted so bad to get on the phone with my mom. Like, what would my mom tell me to do? What would my mom say? And I was so embarrassed. I had to call my dad and I had to tell him because I needed a parent to listen. And, you know, I'm so grateful that I still have my father, but there's nothing that ever compares to a mother comforting you in your time of need. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's time for us to wrap up, but I would love, I'm sure I can see people's love for you. I would love if you could just tell us how people can reach you on your social media. Tell us about how to find Wordiful, because words are wonderful, and so is Liz Hernandez.
I love you, David. So you can find Wordiful on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. It's WORDAFUL. And I release an episode every week on the power of one word. It's usually where I'm at in the season of my life, what I'm struggling with, what I'm going through, what I'm learning, what David has taught me. And you can also find me just at Liz Hernandez, and that's across all channels as well. And I just want to say thank you, David. I still sometimes pinch myself that you're in my life. There's for having Wordiful, I'm at a loss for words to tell you just what it truly means to be able to lean on you in my times of grief. And you have gone from somebody that I was reading your words to now you have just become so instrumental in who I'm becoming.
Thank you. It's very, very sweet. And you are such a gift to me, such a gift to me.
Thank you.
And I also want to mention, Liz and I have both mentioned this woman, Andrea Kagan. Andrea is a wonderful author and writer of best-selling books. I've been privileged. She's edited many of my books that you've read. And I did a class with her on, there you go. And she edited Finding Meaning, the 6 stages. She edited the new one. So Andrea also did a class with me on writing through trauma and grief. So the same way Liz is coming on here as a guest, I'm going to have Andrea on as a guest.
Love it.
Let me just tell you what's coming up, everyone, before we sign off. Tomorrow night, we're going to have Glenn Lord, who's going to be here talking about sibling loss. And he also is with Compassionate Friends and had the loss of his son. And then on Sunday, we're going to have Nancy Levin, who's talking to us about boundaries and grief, which is an amazing topic about how to have good boundaries, whether someone telling you to cry more or cry less, or someone's in your space that's not doing what they should during the pandemic. Nancy's great with those boundary languages, and she's great with relationships and boundaries. She's amazing. And then on Monday, Paul's going to do a little grief yoga with us in the evening. And then on Tuesday, Bradley Vincent's going to be here to talk about being a grandparent dealing with grief. So I'm so thrilled you're here. I'll see you all daily at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, and then we'll have our evening sessions. And Liz, I love you so much. Thank you for the gift you are to everyone. Please give Liz a big thank you there.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone that's here with us right now. It truly means a lot, and my love and empathy goes out to every single person who is struggling with heartache right now. Just know that you're not alone, and that you have a great leader with David, someone who's going to really help you go through the storm.
And one last thing, Liz, I got to tell you, when you did Wordiful and I came to your Wordiful events, I thought this woman really knows how to create community. And that was part of the inspiration for, in these horrible times, being here with everyone for us to create a community so that we're not alone. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Liz. I will see you all tomorrow.